Okie dokie. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Are you there, Miss Jennifer?
Oh, I am here. How's everybody doing? Hey,
How are
Liz.
you? Welcome, everyone. As you're getting connected, we have another minute. I'm just going to go here to our top here. But welcome to today's webinar. Excited to talk about delegation with you, Jennifer, and get into the nitty gritty because that's a big topic for a lot of the women in our community.
Yeah.
For everyone, my name is Liz. I'm the co-founder of the Invest Her community and excited to be leading today's webinar. And so in the chat box, if you can, as we get connected to everyone that's here, please put your name in the chat box, put something you're excited about learning about today, because most important thing we stand for at the Invest Her community is that A, you learn something of value, but two, you do something with what you learn. So in the chat box, if you can put your name and also put what you're looking to, what about delegation is something you want to learn about? That'd be awesome. We pride ourselves on putting together really helpful and impactful webinars. So Jennifer, thanks so much for being here. I'm gonna introduce you in a moment here, as folks are getting connected, and then just give a couple quick overview slides of our community, and then we'll get rolling. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited about this because this has been something that so many people struggle with. And I mean, I've gone to conferences where we straight up just sat in a room and all talked about how we were going to delegate, and how to effectively use the person that we've already hired. And we're sitting with 40 different people that are all collaborating on the same thing.
So
And
true.
it's great.
It's so true. And it's such an important piece. So yeah, for those who are getting connected, welcome to today's webinar hosted by the Real Estate Investor Community. My name is Liz. I'm a co-founder of our wonderful, wonderful growing community. In the chat box, if you can put your name and also where you're from and what you're looking to get out of this today, that'd be awesome. I don't see any comments yet, and I'd love to see comments. So I'm wondering if those are even, if there's the ability to that. Okay, there we go. Hey, Brooke. Brooke, it's so good to see you here. I met Brooke at BPCon. So Brooke, great to have you here. Catherine. Hey, Catherine. Catherine's one of our new Investor Strive members. So welcome. So glad to have you here, Katie. Awesome. Jennifer from Scottsdale. Wonderful. Austin. We're having our conference in Austin. Hey, Kira. Nice to see you here. Awesome. Okay, let's get going, because I want to be really timely and I want to make sure Jennifer has as much time as possible, and then we'll field questions, Jennifer, as we get rolling. But I'm just going to give a couple quick updates. If you are new to our community, I would love to know that. My first thing is to say welcome to our wonderful investor community. But if you can, put in the chat box that you're new. Maybe you just got connected to us recently. Hey, Sarah, thanks for being here. Edith, awesome. Victoria, that's not Victoria. That's why I need to keep my glasses on, because I'm getting old and I can't see. I'm like, why do I take them off? Because I'm blind. But anyway, Danielle, awesome. Well, thank you so much for everyone being here. I'm going to give a couple quick slides, like I said, around what we do and who we are, and then give the floor to Jennifer to talk about delegation. So a little bit about our community. Many of you are probably involved already on our Facebook community. This is our free Facebook group. We have a growing community there. And this is all about giving and getting, posting what you need, where you need support. And it's a safe place. We take that very seriously, where women can get what they need on their own terms. We also have meetups across the country and in Canada. We have so many big plans that are happening with our meetups for next year. We'll share more at a later date, but this is the local way to get connected to investors in the area that are looking to also grow their portfolios. We also have an EXP org. This is our EXP team, if you will, that are for women real estate agents who are also looking to grow their investments. So that's that piece of what we do. And then again, we have free webinars we do twice a month with wonderful experts like Jennifer. We always focus on 3 pillars. For those who are not familiar, obviously real estate investing is our core, but how you run your investing business is also very important. So it's the business piece, and then self-care. And self-care is not the last, it's actually the first, because we really stand for women. We believe that women have the right to create financial freedom on your own terms and whatever that looks like to you. And that really begins and ends with taking care of ourselves, right? Because we can kill ourselves and get where we want to go, but that's no fun, and that's not what anyone really wants. We have our Investor Con annually. This is going to be June 2nd and 4th. This is We have 500 women that were there last year. This is going to be in Austin this year. This is a just about 2-day event that is just transformational. This is like no other. I'm biased, of course, but talk to anyone that's been there. It's a very, very special, unique, feels like a very large retreat, but conference like, where you're really connected to like-minded women with over 30 speakers. We have some really great speakers that we're about to share a little more about as we get moving towards that. So stay tuned. And then lastly here, we have our Strive mentorship program. Many people say, you have so many free things you do. What do you do in terms of really listening to the community and what they need and want? And so we've really made it our mission to serve women who have done 5 to 10 deals, who are looking to scale and grow, who are quite honestly tired of doing it themselves. And we've created the Strive mentorship program. And it's application only. And if you apply, you get a free ticket of Investor Con. And I also wanted to mention this lastly. This is our senior business coach. We are growing our team, just like we encourage you to do so. And just like Jennifer is going to be talking about with delegation, we're also growing our team. And we have this phenomenal team member. Her name is Fatima. She is our senior business coach. And I wanted to offer to all of you that, this is an interesting time we're in, right? We're ending one year. We're about to begin the next year. And sometimes we can't see our blind spots. And for those who are looking to grow their portfolio, who've done the 5 to 10 deals, this is literally a complimentary strategic call you can have with. She's a phenomenal coach and a phenomenal woman. And that's like the way to get connected. Her schedule gets pretty busy and pretty booked. So I would highly recommend connecting with her to help you figure out some of your own blind spots as you're about to enter 2024. So that's my offer to you, my request as a complimentary piece there. So without further ado here, I'm going to introduce you to Jennifer. What I love about our community is that we get a chance to meet amazing women. And so another amazing woman who's very involved in our community, Alicia, connected us to Jennifer. And so we've been chatting with Jennifer. She's been offering so many great ideas on what she does with her company. And delegation, we listen. Delegation is one of the biggest challenges that many of the women in our community are facing. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of doing stuff by myself, right? And that's why we're trying to grow a team, but it's not always as easy. Okay. We're not talking about like, oh, go hire 25 new employees. That's not what this session is going to be about. So Jennifer, I'd love for you to take the floor. I'm going to be your support on the side in terms of managing time and managing questions. Ladies, this is live. This is not pre-recorded. Jennifer's here live and so am I. It's 1:07 Eastern Standard Time on November the 21st. The reason why this is not recorded is that we want to serve you. And in order to serve you, we need to know your questions. So that's why I want you to take advantage of this expert that's sitting with you, Jennifer, and with me. So in the Q&A box, put your questions. We want to answer them. That's why this is live. If not, I could have just sent you a pre-recorded event. That's why we make it that's why we both have this time on our schedule to do this with all of you in our community. We take that seriously. So put your questions, get what you need. We're always saying that to women, get what you need, ask for what you need. So put your questions in the Q&A box. And Jennifer, without further ado, you can take the floor.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet everybody. And I really want to urge you that if you do have a question, pop it in the Q&A box, because I actually really do much better with actual live questions because I want to help you. I don't want to be preaching something that doesn't actually help you where you're at in your business. I jotted down a couple of the questions that already popped up, so I'll make sure that I try and touch on those. But if something comes up, because I'm going to spew a lot of information and some is going to be tools that you haven't seen. If you want to dig into that a little bit more, I'm happy to do that. So just kind of an introduction on who the heck am I and why am I on this webinar. I own a company called Staats Solutions. We run the operations and marketing of real estate businesses nationwide. I've been in real estate for 14 years. I started as an agent. I transitioned to an operations manager, and I started having kids and decided that I was not going to work for somebody anymore, and I was going to do my own thing. So I started an operations business, and I really wanted to do that part-time. I wanted to work less than 30 hours a week. I wanted to take Thursdays off. I wanted to pick them up and drop them off from school. That was my why. It was never to make $1 bajillion. That was my why. I wanted to be able to take care of my kids. With that though, and with the type of company I was starting as an operations manager, you can't really do that part-time. So I very quickly realized I needed to start hiring. So I'm going to kind of present my screen. I put together a little presentation for everybody. Awesome. So there I am, Jennifer. get into that. And today we're going to talk about delegation, which is gaining your time back and increasing your profit. That kind of sounds opposite in most people's minds, because I think we're always trained that to be successful, we have to work more. And that's not always the case. And that's kind of my mantra is I want to grow my company in the way that makes sense for me. I want to grow my clients' companies in the way that makes sense for them. And more often than not, we don't really want to work 100 hours a week. Like there's other goals in mind, right? So the first thing that I want you to think about if you are, for you to get the most out of today's webinar is what does more money and more time mean to you specifically? Because that is going to be different for every single one of us. So I shared with you that gaining back more time for me didn't necessarily start with me wanting to grow my company into this giant, giant thing. It was just as simple as being able to drop my kids off from school, being able to pick them up at the end of the day. And I really started by wanting to take Thursdays off because it started with me wanting to take my newborn to baby gym class. And I couldn't do that with my normal 9 to 5. So that's where my thing started. So I want you to think about, is that traveling? Is it family? Is it wealth? That's going to be different for every single one of us. So my turning point, I had started this company. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what I wasn't willing to give up. I knew that I needed to take some time with my baby. I didn't want to instantly go and keep building this company and hire a nanny. So my turning point was that I made my first hire out of pure necessity. I wasn't prepared. I wasn't ready. And I did not know what I was doing. But after many years of trial and error, both for hiring from myself and my clients, I feel as though, I kind of figured out like how to unlock that, and it made the biggest difference. Okay. So the next thing I want to just have you kind of think about is what hiring mistakes have you made currently? And it could just be, do you have a really hard time delegating? I feel like I saw that with a couple people in the comment section. Did you make a really bad hire in the beginning, and why? Because that is going to actually help you figure out how to make your next hire correctly. Did you get overwhelmed by the hiring process? I know that's feedback that I get from a lot of people that I work with. And some of this takes a lot of deep work to figure out how to do this correctly. I think I saw in the comments that they didn't know how to let go. That's a big one too, right? Like there's so many different things here because we were doing this on our own to begin with. So some of the biggest mistakes I see are thinking their first hire needs to be their last hire. So I always like to treat that like there's going to be turnover. That person's not always going to be in that same position. They might move up. We might move them to a different position. So do not treat your hire like it's going to be your first, only, and last hire. They also don't have a budget to keep that person long term. So if you're hiring someone, you want to make sure that you have a budget to do that long term and it's in your business plan. They might, and this is a pretty common one, they don't have the position developed and no time to train the person. So what exactly does that mean? If you're working 100 hours a week and you want to hire a full-time person, you need to make sure that you're available even more than the 100 hours, or you've made space in that work week in order to give to that person. Because more often than not, that person's going to need some sort of support, whether they have experience or not. You need to make sure that you have that bandwidth. Then they think it must be a full-time hire. So to kind of to go back to what Liz just said, like, I'm not telling you that you need to go hire 25 people. Most of us don't have the budget for that. I'm going to give you some like very actionable steps on people that you can hire right away, and then we can work towards that full-time hire in the future. There's a million things we can get off your plate to give you more time and spaciousness, so then you have the time in the future. And then we all do this, because I know I do this. We overlook that there's tasks that can be automated or streamlined rather than hiring out. So I think a lot of us just instantly think, I have to hire an assistant. I have to hire this person. I have to do this thing. And we don't think about the time-saving things we can do in our life that is going to help us be able to grow our business or get back more time. So I'm going to talk about both business and personal stuff, because I feel as though there are some time-saving things that you can do on both sides. You can hire out personally, you can hire out professionally. So here are some examples, and these are just examples based off of some of my experience of hires that I would make first before I jump into that full-time person. So some of the hires you can look at doing that can be, part-time, full-time, but they can save you a little bit of money, are a virtual assistant. You can hire fractional COOs, CFOs, CTOs, depending on where you're at in your business. Bookkeepers, most of us need bookkeepers. Social media managers is a big one that I see being able to easily hire out for. Transaction coordinators, obviously we're all in the real estate space. Sometimes that can be applied towards it, your workflow and save you a ton of time. A realtor, a lot of us are kind of finding our own deals. Maybe hiring a realtor might actually be helpful. And here's some personal ones. So we've got a housekeeper. I mean, if we are looking to gain back a little bit of time in our life, sometimes a housekeeper can be a huge one. A gardener, a nanny, and then we've got website designer, property manager, handyman. I know me. I started out by doing all of this myself. And so by compartmentalizing what I think I need to delegate out or hire for, gets me a ton of time back, a ton of stress off, and then I can start working on what's the most important thing. So these are some of the hires I would look at first, and then I would look at hiring full-time next. So these roles are often paid at close. So if you're looking at like a transaction coordinator, a realtor, some of those are paid at close. So for cash flow wise, that can be really great. A lot of them can be easier to delegate because they do have experience. So a lot of times we're hiring just right off the bat, like a virtual assistant, and they have no experience in doing what we need them to do. So the training is going to be a lot harder. So sometimes if you can kind of hire these contractors to do the work first, it can be a little bit easier to start off with that first hire and get the flow of someone actually working for you. Generally, they can be inexpensive, depending on which one you're working towards, and they can take a major weight off of you almost instantly. So if you're thinking about how many hours a week you're spending cleaning, how many hours a week you're spending, fixing stuff, if you're fixing your own property, stuff like that, maybe a handyman can really, really be beneficial. And then this is the other part of it too, is that we are going to talk a little bit about automation. So I think a lot of times we're not thinking about this. We're just thinking we're going to delegate, we're going to delegate. Well, what exactly can you automate in your business first before you hire an executive assistant or before you hire out? So think of things like that you're doing on a weekly basis. So a scheduling link. So creating a Calendly. Calendlies are free, if not $10 a month. If you're scheduling meetings and stuff like that, definitely look into a Calendly before you're looking at a full-time assistant to schedule our meetings. Automated bill pay, grocery pickup. This is a big one for me. Meal kits or a meal service, customer journey. So if you have a lot of like incoming leads or incoming clients that are coming in, what's happening with them? Are you currently right now just doing all of the work yourself, or is there something you can set up? I'm all about being cheap. So there's a lot of automations that you can do that's cheap or free, rather than setting up something fancy. So like, for instance, if I send an email a lot, I will actually just make an email template in my Gmail account and set it up that way. That didn't take me hiring out. It didn't take me paying for an extra service. I just set it up all right there. And then marketing. So what type of marketing can you set up to automate? So there's a lot of social media scheduler stuff like that that can make your life a lot easier. Now we're in the life of AI. There's a lot of things you can plug into AI, which is a whole other talk, but you can kind of schedule a little bit there. And I see a lot of comments in here.
It's actually a really good question, Jennifer, and I think you spoke to it.
Okay.
Agnes is asking about, those people to hire for your team. I would, I think, I don't know what your thoughts are here. Obviously, this could be a great starting point, right? But it'd be awesome, Agnes. And I don't know what other people have done is to almost just like we create buckets in our business, marketing, sales, operations, right? Doing the same thing for your home and start bucketing in a sense, the kind of like all the things that have to happen, but in terms of like focus. So
Mm-hmm.
outside, taking care of your cars, grocery shopping, just like you have here. I think starting to create, okay, how do I run this household? What do those buckets look like? And what are the specific tasks underneath the buckets? Then you start to say, okay, who could maybe
Mm-hmm.
handle a few of those buckets or one bucket? What can I automate? Who can I delegate? I don't know what your thoughts are, Jennifer, but for me, I had to list everything first to really
Yeah.
start to organize it for me and saying, what do I even need to do? And then what can I do here?
Yep. And I'm actually going to take you through an exercise that's going to help you do just that. Because
Great.
I put myself personally through this exercise when I'm feeling overwhelmed or I'm feeling like I want to take the next step in my business. And it's funny because now my husband's even trained. He's like, "Are you going to put yourself through that exercise again because you're expressing to me that you're a little bit overwhelmed?" And one of the funny things is through that exercise, I actually figured out that I could delegate to my partner a little bit more. And he was like, "I just need you to tell me what you need and I'll do it." And I was like, "Oh, what a funny like thought right there that I already had the person, not hired, but I had the person that I already needed to delegate to." So, yeah, so let's jump in because it's funny. That's like I think it's the next slide. So, um, so gain back valuable time. So think about all the things that you're doing manually, picking up groceries, paying bills, marketing, sending the same email, prepping meals. All of that in theory can be automated. Some of us want control over those things. So sometimes it's a little bit hard to delegate or hire out. And I totally understand that. Or some of us just really, really like cooking. And that's not something that you're even slightly willing to delegate out for. So there's things, right? Like what's going to fill your cup. You might not want to delegate that out because you really like doing that, right? You might not want to hire a nanny because you really, really want to be with your kids. Maybe you homeschool or all of those things. It depends on what brings you a lot of joy. And that's where you're going to have to decide those things. But for me, so we're going to talk about what can I delegate first. So this is actually the exercise I'm going to put you through. And this is actually a 2-week exercise. So we're not going to do it live on the call, but I'm going to give you the tools in order to do that because this right here has helped me a ton. And it saved me a ton of hours every week. And it saved me a ton of hours before I even had to hire out. And then it actually helps me make that next hire. So it's something that I do with my clients too. Because when they hire me, they're like, they also don't know what to delegate to me. And I don't know what to tell them to delegate to me because I don't know their business. So this is something that I kind of put them through and myself through, and I do it repetitively when I feel like I'm getting a little bit overwhelmed. So you're going to do something that I call the yellow pad technique. It doesn't need to be a yellow pad. It's just a notebook. And you are going to leave that on your desk and for 2 weeks. And you are going to write down all of the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis that you feel like are not in your zone of genius, could easily be delegated out, are taking up a ton of your time, or you feel like someone might just be able to do better. So like possibly a bookkeeper or something like that. Like, hey, I'm constantly looking up on YouTube how to do this thing. I'm constantly trying to figure it out. Maybe it would be better if I hired a professional. You're going to jot all of that down. And I'm hoping by the end of the 2 weeks, you're going to have a ton of stuff, right? And we might not be able to delegate all of it right off the bat. But like for me, when I started really looking at my week and what was really overwhelming me and taking up a lot of time, it came down to going to the grocery store. I was packing up both my toddlers. I was going to the grocery store. I was coming back and I'm talking through it with my husband. And I'm like, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I feel like I don't have enough time for everything. And he's like, well, can't we just do grocery pickup? And it was like the simplest thing that I figured out from this exercise that saved me about 3 hours a week. And it actually saved me money too, because I don't have toddlers like grabbing everything off the shelves. So you're going to put this on your desk for 2 weeks and you're going to jot everything down. So there's also another bucket of it too, is that I want you writing down not only the things you're doing, but the things you're putting off and the things that you wish you could be doing, but you don't have enough time. Okay, you're going to write all of that down because I think that's important, because there's things that you're either pushing off because you hate it, or you don't like it, or you're not good at it, or probably for most of us, we just don't have enough time. So I want you writing all of that down. Okay, you're going to compile all of this down, because then we're going to create what we're going to actually delegate to. So now we're going to craft a position. Okay, so is there something on that list that would take your business to the next level, or a group of similar tasks you could give to one person? So that could be personally and or professionally. You know, if you're looking that you want to do something for your house and you want to take that off of your list, it could be as simple as a housekeeper. I know when I hired my housekeeper, I had a conversation with her and I said, hey, this is actually what I'm trying to accomplish. I need a little bit of help with, you know, housekeeping. I need a little bit of help with like kids' clothes. That took me a huge weight off my plate. She didn't charge me a whole lot more because she was already there, and I just worked through it. So you can do the personal stuff, and then we're also going to talk about the professional stuff. So, you know, if you feel like all day long, all you're doing is contracts, you feel like all you're doing is signing and getting things out, and you're handling the next deal, maybe we're looking at more of a transaction coordinator position. But you're going to actually look at all of those things, and that's how we're going to figure out what we're going to hire for. Now, this is going to be the most important thing I'm going to share with you, because we all make this mistake. It's very important to remember that it's unlikely you are going to find a jack of all trades hire. Okay, just because you've been doing the bookkeeping and the cleaning and the picking up kids and the finding deals, and you've been out there painting, you know, your next flip, that does not mean you're going to be able to hire an assistant that's going to do it all. I know when I was a real estate assistant, my first person that hired me thought that I was going to be able to watch her kids, do all her deals, drive 2 hours to find the next deal. And it's not possible, because now we're doing all of it. And now I'm in the same position she was at, and it wasn't super successful. So super important to remember, we're trying to find the tasks that are very similar in nature. It's fine if you hire someone, you figure out that your nanny is also really good at real estate, but we're going to focus in on one thing so they can be really niche down. Now we're going to draft all of that into a job description. So it can just start as a very, you know, bullet pointed, these are all the things that I'm going to want them to do. Now we're going to look at posting a job ad. So a job ad could be a couple different things, right? We could actually be out there looking for a bookkeeper. So we're probably not going to post an actual job ad. More often than not, though, we are going to be actually drafting a job ad somewhere. And these job ads can go anywhere. So if you're hiring a virtual assistant, it could
I think Jennifer.
Oh, go
You
ahead.
there, Jennifer?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. You got, I'm like, did I see just a quick pause? But okay, you're back.
Oh, I'm back. Hey, everybody. Sorry about that. Where did I leave off? Did I freeze?
Yeah, you just froze for a second.
Okay.
It was a couple of seconds. So you
Okay.
just might want to repeat what you were just trying to point
Okay.
out.
So we're going to talk about the job ad. So the job ad can go anywhere. So Upwork is a big one. I see a lot of virtual help. So that could be like social media help. That could be a virtual assistant, anything like that. Or the one that my team uses the most is called Wise Hire. And I'll actually post all of these names. I have a bunch of tools to share with you guys. It's about $200 a month. You can pause it at any time. I love it because it helps you craft the whole job ad. It'll actually give you, like, based on your area, how much they think you should pay. It's a kind of a good tool, so you don't have to do a lot of research on your own. So in that job ad, we're going to include the basics like requirements, you know, what are you wanting them to do, pay, benefits, all of that seems very straightforward, but more often than not, I see a lot of these missing. And then preferably asking screening questions. So what's important to you? What do you want them to know? I recommend some sort of screening questions there. And then the most important part, and a lot of people don't think about this, is tell them about yourself, about your company, about your mission. What are you trying to do? Because you want their buy-in. I find that some of my most successful hires, there was a buy-in from day one. Like, I knew on the interview, they really loved our company and what we were going to do. So they are willing to stay a lot longer. I tend to think they work a little bit harder because they're really bought into your mission and you know you're aligned. This is something that Wise Hire specifically puts all applicants through, but you can use this anywhere. I know a lot of us believe in different talent assessments. I personally believed in the DISC assessment. I know Liz has one that she believes in. So everybody has their, their own thing that they understand. But my requirements or my goals behind this are, you want to choose the test that's right for you and your company. And then you want to stay consistent and you want to stay educated. So we use a DISC profile across all of our new hires, and that's the only one we use. That way I can compare. So like now that I have a team of 12, I can actually see on a chart where they all pinpoint. And so what's really fun for me as my company grows, I can go, wow, that employee didn't work out very well. But now I can see on the DISC profile that that's probably why. So Wise Hire will do this for you. They actually plot it against whatever position you have open. They'll tell you if it's a good fit or a bad fit. And they will actually tell you based on other positions you have in your company when you're looking at hiring, like let's say an assistant, and you have a management position open somewhere else, it'll tell you this person is also a good fit or a poor personality fit for that position. So I can actually see kind of their trail. And this is a pretty advanced, but I think it is a really fun tool. If you're using it consistently, over time, you can kind of see what their personality fit was and why or why not they didn't work out. Okay, interviewing. Everyone gets really nervous about interviewing, okay? Because they're so nervous they're going to make the wrong or the right choice. I like to say, and this is probably like some wonky way of looking at it, is just get a sense for the person, right? You've already seen their resume. Chances are most of us are not completely truthful in an interview anyways. So you want to meet the person either in person or you want to be on a video. I don't recommend phone call. I like to be able to see their facial cues when you ask them questions. I like to see if they're nervous. Maybe they look maybe they're quiet because they're just nervous. I like to ask the same consistent questions across all the people we interview. That way I have the same exact answers. And then I like to give them time to warm up. There's been so many times where I feel like someone came across a little bit quiet or reserved, or they weren't answering my questions. And then I asked them a question about their dog or something. And all of a sudden they lit up and their whole personality changed. Or I said something that really lit them up. And you want to let them warm up so you can see their actual personality. Hopefully this is someone that you're wanting to work with for a while. So I'm going to dive into the questions really quick and see. Yeah. Okay. So Instacart has saved hours a week and money. Yep. You don't have to pick up compulsive items. It saved me a ton of money doing grocery pickup. Like I can actually see what my cart has in it. And I'm not buying all the junk that I used to do. Right. And then I can either just stop and pick it up, or my husband will stop and pick it up on the way home too. And it's just a ton of time. Now I can focus those 3 hours that I spent every week on my kids, or I could sit, at work and I can work a little bit harder. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So interviewing, the big one, that's a big one that everyone gets kind of hung up on. And then this is one that a few of you kind of mentioned. You want to make it so you can rinse and repeat that position. And that's going to sound awful from a high level perspective. But what I want you to think about is that you want to treat every hire like they'll be replaced. And I don't want to say replaced as in fired. I always look at my staff like I am putting them in this position and I am working with them to promote them into something different, whether better or different. We find out that they're actually really good at something else in the company and I move them there. So we have very, very, very little turnover within Stat Solutions because we use this tactic. So every single time I'm hiring someone and we are training on a new task, we are documenting it. So we're probably recording it. We are writing it down. We're making it into an SOP. It doesn't have to be anything super crazy fancy. That's where I think a lot of people have a hard time delegating, is they think from day one, they need this really, really fancy, policies and procedures manual and full training book. No, from day one, jump on a Zoom, record it, put it somewhere that the assistant or whoever you hired can find it in the future. That way, if you hire someone else or you have turnover, you already have everything pre-recorded. So I record all of our trainings. I also use Loom, which is free. And I record anything that I'm giving them feedback or quick little tips. And we actually go one level up and I download them all and I put them as unlisted on YouTube. That way they're always there forever. It's made my hiring journey way, way better because of the fact that it's made it so much easier for me, because as I hire someone else, they have everything pretty documented for me.
We got a question. We got a quick question here. Do you mind if I interrupt you, or do you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Bosch, I think it is. Saying what does PEO stand for? You must have missed.
Yeah. So a PEO. So we use JustWorks with it, which is a PEO. So you don't need an employer number or anything. So I hire in all 50 states. With that becomes really hard for hiring because of the fact that you have to get an employer number. I basically need like human resources in all 50 states. So JustWorks is about $50 a month. They will actually hire your employee for you. They'll handle all of your payroll taxes, employer numbers. They handle all of our benefits. It was a game changer for me because I thought I could only hire in one state. I thought that was going to really limit me as far as who I could hire. And so they're a really good one. If I even have an issue with an employee in a certain state, they'll actually just put me on a live call with a human resources representative. So if you're looking to hire someone in the States, it's a good place to start, so you don't have to get really overwhelmed by having to like register with your state and payroll taxes and all that stuff. They'll do it for you.
And there's a lot of companies that have VA services, so virtual assistant, in essence, like sourcing and placement. Thoughts about that as a strategy? Katie's asking.
I think it's a great strategy. I think it's a good place to start. Now, I'm going to preface that with, I think this rinse and repeat model is very, very, very important because, in my opinion, virtual assistants have a very, very high turnover rate. And that can be for many different reasons. I think a lot of VAs start as a VA and they're looking for something different. And so they transition out very quickly. I don't see a lot of virtual assistants with our clients last very long. I do have one client that's had his same marketing VA for 3 years, and that's the longest I've seen. Do I think it works? Absolutely. Do I want you to be prepared to rinse and repeat? 1000%. There's also other things I want you to think of when you're hiring a virtual assistant, because I think a lot of people don't treat their virtual assistants like a real human being. And that's why you see turnover, because you're not treating them like an employee or a team member or staff. You're treating them like a tool. And so you want to make sure if you do hire a virtual assistant, you're pouring into them just like you would an employee that's sitting right next to you. And this is coming from, I'm 100% virtual. And, I have clients that I had a baby and like, they didn't even ask if I was like, how everything was. And then I have other people that really pour into me, in a different way. So you want to make sure that you have all of your training really, really well documented as you go through it. And then you want to be ready for them to either promote them, hopefully, or be ready for them to turn over, because of the fact that a lot of times if you're using a VA service, you're not hiring that person directly, you are using a company. And so that company controls your relationship. So just kind of think about that, Catherine, with that. What VA service are you using? It's just through Upwork Direct?
Yeah, we'll see if she answers that, or she was considering there's a few.
And then I would say the feedback for, she did a great job on LinkedIn, but her Instagram posts somewhat missed the mark. Did you give her feedback? Sometimes, in my opinion, marketing is such an art that a lot of times you just have a different thought. And if she's in a different country, the verbiage can be wrong. I actually was mentoring a VA this morning where I just don't think she understood that like the size was different from stories to Facebook to Instagram. And I'm like, for clarification's sake, this is what I'm looking for. So sometimes you have to break it down. Yeah.
No, it's a good point. And I think that's the thing you have to, in our experience too, hiring VAs, it's like you have to think about how much of a thinker does the person need to be and how much of a doer do they need to be. And we want everyone to think, obviously, but you sometimes don't get that, right? Like you have to literally give some people exact instructions on something. Or do you need to have someone who you can give the vision to and with some
Mm-hmm.
guardrails, guardrails of like, okay, do's and don'ts, and then, make it happen. I think there's a lot of different types of VA companies and a lot of different types of VAs. So just remind yourself of that. If you're not getting what you want, it might also be, whether it's the right person, but also the right instruction, or are you setting them up for success?
Mm-hmm.
Are you asking a doer to be a thinker? And maybe it's just not going to happen. Right. And not a
Yep.
bad thing. It's just something to manage expectations is
Yeah.
what we've learned. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
about you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I see that all the time because we not only hire internally, but we help all of our clients hire. So I'm constantly seeing VAs and who they hire and all these things and success stories and how it failed. And a lot of times it starts with us. Truly. I would say about like 80% of the time it starts with the instructions we gave them, and not asking for enough feedback. So like I had a client recently who was not asking the right questions. So with his VA, and he was like wanted to give her more work and wanted to give her a promotion, wanted to do all these things. Well, it came to find out she didn't want any of that. She just liked what she was doing. She didn't want all these extra tasks. And so she was getting frustrated, but it was because he didn't actually have the conversation to ask what her goal was. So
Great point.
okay, so rinse and repeat. So that's a big one. Like you need everything to be documented so you're ready for that person. I have also had a couple issues with VAs, just to kind of go back to that. If there was a storm or something like that, that we didn't have everything properly documented. So like I couldn't even jump in and figure out where she had left off because of the fact that she was just had no internet service. So it just very, I always tell my staff, like, it's not just me getting ready for you to leave. I want you to take a vacation. I want you to take a day off. You have a holiday, there's a storm, all the different things. Can I jump in and do the next thing that you normally would have done? So then just putting it in action. Because I think a lot of us just overthink some of these delegation and hiring tasks for many different reasons, right? So I want you to start with using the yellow pad technique. Get this stuff out of your brain. It's going to be really eye-opening when you actually see it on a piece of paper. I'm telling you right now. And then you're going to craft the position and locate your next hire. You're going to make your next hire, and then you're going to rinse and repeat. And then here are some of the tools that we kind of talked about today. These are ones I just use in my business. I found them easy. They kind of save me a lot of time. Some are free, some do cost money. Wise Hire we talked about. JustWorks is just one PEO. You don't have to do that. You can hire directly too, or you can use things like Upwork. JustWorks was a huge thing that changed my business just because I was hiring virtually in all 50 states. Loom and Tango, free. Those are going to be able to, you can record your screen, and or you can actually like make little screenshots of what you're doing. Both of huge time saving things when I'm making trainings. Asana is also free. We use that for all of our task management, collaborate with our staff, stuff like that. Trainual is not free, but I house all of our trainings there. Google Classroom can be free if you have a Google Workspaces account, if you're looking for somewhere to put those trainings at eventually. LastPass is a password keeper. It ends up being a huge question of a lot of people when you're hiring. How do I give them passwords? LastPass is a good one for that. And then Clockify, that's actually a timesheet or a time tracker. A lot of people ask me like, well, how do I track their time? Clockify also has some screenshots and that captures their screen that can be really helpful. I don't use that for my staff, but I can track everything they're doing. And then we talked about Calendly, which I think most people know what Calendly is, but it's a meeting scheduler. So if you're thinking, oh, I need an executive assistant because I need them to manage my calendar, maybe you're starting with Calendly first. So any other questions? I know we kind of answered them as they came in, but what can we answer?
Yeah. Please put your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll definitely start to manage them when it comes to what you're looking for. So yeah, Kira's asking, do you recommend paying hourly or per task? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it depends on the type of job. I think for sure when you actually craft everything and you have it all written out. If you're talking graphic designer and you want to pay per, for the whole website or for one piece, it might make sense per task. If you're talking all these minute little things, I would say hourly makes a whole lot of sense. If you're trying to keep like a long-term relationship or in-house person, it's probably going to be an hourly or a salary type of job.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you can actually segue that, meaning you can test someone with a project and then move to a different pay structure, if you like what you see.
Yeah.
I mean, we like
Yeah.
contractors, right? That give us a price on the project versus
Yeah.
hourly, in general, right?
Exactly. Right. If we're talking like a construction project, I don't want to pay them per hour, right? Because I don't even know how many hours that's going to take them. It's going to be really, different. My internal staff, I pay hourly, but they are full-time staff with us. So I wouldn't want to pay them per project because frankly, I wouldn't want to have to like itemize everything that they're doing on the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great point. Brindy, can you speak to what to consider when looking at a contractor versus an employee?
Mm-hmm. So here's feedback on contractor versus an employee, and it's going to depend on your long-term goal. More often than not, a contractor is a contractor. They are running their own business, right? So we also have to kind of think of ourselves. So this is what we talked about earlier when we're talking about deep work. Are we okay with someone kind of doing their own thing? Maybe it's they have their own business hours or their own whatever that is. I know for myself and my OCD nature, I do better with a full-time staff that is working for me because I can have a little bit more control over what they're producing. It just depends on what it is and where you're at in your business. So I would say more often than not, you want to start out with more of a contractor because that's going to be more project. It can probably help you make big strides in your business and then move to an employee later down the road. There's a lot more, I'm going to say baggage with an employee because there's employer numbers, taxes. My staff are like my babies. I feel fully responsible for their mortgages and all that stuff. So there's a couple layers to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. Okay, so if you're just starting out, how much should you budget for social media marketing or a virtual assistant? Is there a
So
thought on that?
here's what I want you to think about with social media stuff. Social media can be as much as you possibly want to pay because it's just such a vast thing, right? I would actually go into it with what is your budget for social media? Is it 200, 500, 600, whatever that is, and back into that with a social media manager and say, what can I get for this budget? Because most of us don't need to be posting on social media 5 times a day. It's not completely necessary for our business model. So I would actually say back into it that way, which is going to sound a little bit opposite. Because if you go and you just talk to a social media manager, they're going to be like, I charge $1,000 a month. Well, maybe you didn't want to post as much times as they were willing to do. Maybe you don't want to do reels or video or all that stuff. And then a virtual assistant's really going to be dependent on the tasks, right? So what you're going to go through your yellow pad and you're going to look at all the things that you want to delegate out. Are they very simple tasks? Meaning, can I hire someone for $4 an hour? Or like, are they really difficult and they need some sort of degree or background or something like that? And that's going to determine what your budget needs to be. And maybe it's not the time to make that higher because it's too high level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. How about capital? Where do you see your clients getting the capital to hire?
Yeah. I mean, many of our clients, it comes from different places. So we've had clients that are like, I'm going on this new venture. I'm going to pull from my 401k. Not that I'm recommending that, but that's where he got the budget for the year to hire out for this new venture. We've had a couple people do that. More often than not, we have a lot of our clients that have one company and they're wanting to start from the next. So they have some capital from this company that they have saved for the year. And so we've budgeted X amount of salary for the year to go hire for. So we're looking at everything they need to do and we're creating a budget for the year based on that need. So a lot of times if I feel like they don't have the capital, we might be hiring something that's paid at close, or that's a little bit more cost effective than a full-time person to start with.
Yeah. And it's also about like, are you doing things that are revenue generating? Because then you can
Yep.
start to say, okay, where do I want to invest in my company, a flip, or depending on what your, money making activities are, right? Your revenue
Yep.
generating activities. And then start to say, okay, can we earmark some money to invest back into the company? It always,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Jennifer, but when we hired our first bookkeeper, me and my husband, many, many years ago, it felt like it was like where we're going to get this money. And that,
Yeah.
and in hindsight, right? Um, that's only increased the amount of money we're paying people. But
Yeah.
it does take a little bit of a leap of faith. And I feel like, it starts to create, okay, how can I buy that money? How can I make that money 10 times back? Because now I'm going to work on money making activities. So it is about cost, and it's about investing in yourself and your business too. And it's all
Mm-hmm.
it's all part of the puzzle of figuring this out. But
Yep.
I think most people are short sighted and they don't think about that part, about what the return will be if they're able to be
Mm-hmm.
freed up to go go do the money revenue generating activities.
Yeah. Like, what is your time worth?
Sure.
Right. So how much more business can you go get if you alleviated those 4 hours per week?
Right.
Like, for something for me as simple as the silly grocery pickup, I found myself saving a ton of money just on that step alone, that then I can use that money to pay for something else. And I'm freeing up my time, which is worth whatever amount of time.
Yeah.
So there's different things that you want to look at. It's not just a definite cost. Some of these positions are going to be direct overhead, but a lot of them are going to be making you more money in return.
Yeah. How about hiring a VA for confidential matters?
Yeah. So I just had someone ask me the other day, because they were like, well, how can I protect all of my information? There's a bunch of stuff you can do, right? Obviously, you can have them sign NDAs and stuff like that. A lot of that might not help if they are overseas. A lot of things that we do to protect a lot of our data are things like LastPass, where we're protecting all of our passwords. That's been really helpful, because if for some reason they don't show up or I have to let them go, I can just remove their access very, very quickly, not only from my own stuff, but clients. Same thing with like Google Drive. We have a shared Google Drive. The second, anybody's gone, we're going to remove all of that. You are taking a risk though, but you're taking a risk with anyone. It's really not just a VA. If you're hiring an employee or anybody, you're taking a little bit of a risk with your confidential information. So you just want to protect that, right? Make sure that you maybe are taking steps into giving them access to different things. Maybe you're keeping an eye on what's being logged into and where. We have had a VA before where, we thought we were hiring her, but she in turn was delegating to somebody else. That's very, very common. So you just want to make sure you're taking steps to protect yourself.
Yeah. Good suggestion. How about hiring a VA from a different country in terms of how do you document it for taxes when they don't have an SSN or an EIN?
Mm-hmm. So there's different steps that you can take. And now I'm not going to say for like legal purposes, but there's different steps you can do. Like, so with JustWorks, there are different ways, and there's different PEO providers that'll actually help you hire overseas, and they'll help you do it correctly. So you want to look into some of those. They can be fairly inexpensive. You can legally do it through Upwork. I would be really conscientious and careful hiring direct. I know a lot of people that are paying through PayPal, and that's not actually the legal way to do it. So you want to be really careful in that regard, because you are paying someone overseas. But look into things like a PEO provider that handles overseas type of stuff. I don't have a whole lot of experience with Canada specifically, but a lot of those companies will tell you who you can and cannot transact with, and they'll actually do some of the exchange rates for you. So it'll make it a little easier.
Yeah, no, good suggestion. And Danielle, this is a great question. Any tips for rolling out a more thoughtful and productive delegation style based on your tips today with an existing team who's used to the status quo?
Okay, so tips for rolling out a more thoughtful and productive delegation style. I would probably need a little bit more information about what you think thoughtful and productive delegation style would be. But my style of delegating is I generally try and look at the way that my staff receives information, and I try to craft some of that for them. I have some staff that really like, I've actually had a few different staff that really like voice clips. They like video, or they like text. And so I try to look at that information and see if there's different ways I can deliver that information so it'll be well received by the entire crowd. If it's something that I'm putting into a training manual that I know is going to be there forever, I'll try to include both, because I've had feedback of like, well, I really like watching the video because I like to visually do it. But then the next person feels like that's a time wasting, move by having to watch the video. They want the step by step. So there are things like Loom will transcribe it for you. There are different ways that you can do both. And if they're used to the status quo, I would maybe ask them how they want to receive it. Get feedback and see what they say.
Great suggestion. I think also, Danielle, what would be really helpful, and I know Jennifer spoke to this, but the more insight we can get about ourselves as a leader, do we give too much information? Do we not give enough information? Are we more of a visionary? Are we more of an operational person? Are we an introvert? Are we an extrovert? Right? Do we use too many words? Do we use too few words? That kind of insight about ourselves will also help you become very thoughtful to then give the team what they need, because we don't often give people what we need. We give people what we think they need based on ourselves. That's the natural inclination. So, but that's sometimes the worst thing you could do, depending on who you're managing and who you're leading. So I'm a really big fan, I know Jennifer is too, of doing a lot of assessment on yourself, just literally any assessment you could take, DISC, predictive index. Read Rocket Fuel. It's a great, great, great book by Gino Wickman. Colby is a phenomenal assessment about your instinct. I mean, I got my brain scanned this year, me and Andressa. More to come about that. I mean, the more you know about yourself, mind, body, and soul, the more effective you will be as a delegator. No question.
Yep.
So even if it literally starts out by taking a simple personality assessment online, that's the kind of thoughtfulness that needs to go into it. And then migrating it and really connecting to the people you're leading. That's like phase 2, but it starts with us. So I'm really encouraged that, Danielle, if you've never done any sort of assessment like that.
Yeah, 100%. We actually did, the team really loved it earlier this year. We all went through a separate personality test, and we all shared our communication styles with each other. And the team loved it because they saw into the way that we like to receive information. Mine was very, very clear. Everyone knew that I just like to receive the facts, the bullet points. I wanted done, 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 gone. They all knew that without even hearing my personality test. But I heard from each of the different people that this one likes to chit chat a little bit before they receive information, and this one likes all the information, and this one wants the vision. And I kind of liked being able to see that with my staff, so I could kind of craft the way that I was giving training, feedback, information, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, it's funny, right? We think people want what we want. It's the opposite sometimes, right?
Yeah.
In a good rule of thumb, Danielle, I would find, and I'm sure you know this, Jennifer, as we end, people are either task oriented, like get to the point, or they're going to want more color and more words and more people oriented, or they're more like big picture or like zone in on the detail.
Yeah.
And knowing that makes all the difference how we communicate, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Great questions, everyone. I'd love to hear in the chat box, what is your biggest takeaway as a result of today's webinar? What are you going to do? One simple action step you're going to do as a result of today's webinar. I'm going to read these too.
Oh, I love that.
Let me see here. People are asking questions, so I'm getting back to it. All right, let's see what everyone's saying here. Keep a list next to my desk of things. Yep, the yellow pad activity. Very cool. Communicate better. My needs are with my VA. Good. Looking at just works. Awesome. Budget for the whole year. That's a big one. Look for the, this quick. Look over the day to day and see what I can mainstream. Very cool. Let's go. Read Rocket Fuel. Yeah, great book. I'm telling you. Danielle. I want to hear an update on the Facebook community. Danielle, tag me. Tag Jennifer too. Cool. Let's see the last one here. Yes, awesome. Well, thank you so much, and really appreciate you, Jennifer, for your great presentation. And delegation is a muscle, everyone. Just like we go to the gym, you got to start practicing. So what can you delegate to your children? What can you delegate in a safe environment? Just start building that muscle, and you'll become like, oh, I love this. I got to do this more. Right. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Jennifer, for spending time with us today. And everyone, thank you so much for being on today's webinar, and stay tuned for more, and have a great rest of the day and do something with what you learned.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.